Ladies and gentlemen, the three most important things in life: faith, hope, and love. This is with my love, and I thank you all for sharing this life with me.
We gather today in the presence of God to honour and celebrate and give thanks for the life of Jenni Askew and to mourn her death. My name is Andrew Callender. I'm the minister here at St Andrew's, where for many, many years Jenni was a faithful member. And on behalf of Jenni's family, I welcome you all to this funeral service. The family wishes to thank all who have come to share this time with them. It is being recorded so that those who can't be here will be able to participate in what we are doing here today as well. In the event of some sort of an emergency, there are two exits out there, out here, and the gathering place is in the car park back this way. After we have concluded here, as you file out, you're invited to come and share with the family in refreshments together. There's a basket of flowers that you're invited to place on the table or on the casket as a gesture of farewell to Jenni. And then Jenni will be brought through to the hall to have one last cup of tea with us. Let us pray. Living God, you have not made us for darkness and death, but for light and life with you. Without you, we have nothing to hope for, and with you, we have nothing to fear. May we hear your words of life. Lift us up out of our anxiety and sorrow to the peace and joy of your presence, and fill us with faith, hope, and love. Loving God, we praise you and thank you for all the people who have shared this earthly life with us. We especially thank you for Jenni and all that made her the person she was. We thank you for all that you helped her to accomplish and all that she meant to those who knew and loved her. Holy God, in this funeral service, may we honour Jenni's memory. And may we honour you, O God, the one in whom Jenni placed all her trust and hope. We thank you for all the wonderful and precious memories Jenni leaves behind. Now that you have called her to yourself, help us to be content to release her to you. God of all compassion, we commend to your care Jenni's family. Sustain and comfort them in the days to come with treasured memories of the past, hope for the future, and the knowledge of your gracious presence in their lives. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. There are various speakers who are going to share memories and tributes and eulogies concerning different aspects of Jenni's life. And after family members have spoken, there's an invitation to anyone else who would like to speak concerning Jenni. And that will be begun by the session clerk here at St Andrew's, Peter Smale. But to begin with, I want to invite Mark Hodge, Jenni's nephew, followed by Joanne, Jenni's niece, and then Sir Robert MacLeod, who will speak on behalf of the family in relation to Jenni. So, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. As Andrew has said, I'm Jenni's nephew. I'm the eldest of the nephews and nieces. My mother reminded me that I was christened in this church, which I didn't know, but 67 years ago. So I'm Mark Edward Askew Hodge, proud to carry the Askew name. Today we gather to honour and celebrate the life of Jenni May Askew, who passed away on the 1st of August at the grand age of 96. Jenni was born in 1930, the eldest of the 4 children of Ivy and Cyril Askew, after Jenni, Pat, Litherland, Judy Hodge and Ed. From her earliest years she carried the quiet confidence and steady capability that would define her entire life. Jenni grew up in Rawalka, attending Rawalka Primary School and later Machuaka District High School. She was a bright student, a prefect, and someone who threw herself wholeheartedly into school life. You may all be surprised to learn, however, that the future prefect did take some time to gain that level of maturity. Whilst at Rawalka Primary, she recalls getting the strap twice, once for saying Harbour Day instead of Arbor Day, and the other time for laughing when the school was practising singing a song called Deep River. Who would have thought? Times have changed, of course, since then when it comes to disciplining school children. She took part in every sport available and in school productions, already showing the energy and enthusiasm that would stay with her for decades. After leaving school, Jenni began her working life with Perce Craig, an accountant in Machuaka. Alongside her work, both during her school life and after leaving school, she excelled in sport. Cricket, athletics, indoor basketball, netball. She was an all-rounder in every sense. She represented her region in indoor basketball, cricket, netball, and later in life took up croquet, playing with the same competitive spirit she brought to everything. A favourite photo for those of us visiting Lotters Lane was the picture in the kitchen of the Machuaka basketball Sub-Association A rep team of 1953, featuring Jenni as captain along with her two sisters, Pat and Judy, and their three cousins, Margaret and Colleen Stewart and Colleen Coleman. At around 21 years of age, Jenni and her best friend Molly Best set off on an adventure that would become one of the defining stories of her youth. Together they worked their way around New Zealand, staying in pubs and working as housemaids, including in lovely places such as Lake Ohau. Not long after, the two, accompanied by Molly's husband Dennis, travelled by ship to the United Kingdom, where they lived and worked for about 2 years. That was a bold undertaking for young women at that time, and it spoke volumes about Jenni's independence and curiosity about the world. When she returned to New Zealand, Jenni began working for Unilever in office administration. She embraced new technology from the very beginning, learning to use computers when they first arrived in the office, and she continued to use and enjoy technology right up until the end of her life, having a mobile phone, iPad and desktop computer. Jenni even had a Facebook page at her age and commented on a Facebook post that Shelley posted recently from Montenegro on the 5th of July. Quote, "Well, I really enjoyed my breakfast read this morning. Cloudy rain threatening here, Auntie Jen." Her work with Unilever took her to Christchurch, Blenheim and Hastings before she eventually returned to Machuaka after her father Cyril died. She remained at the Machuaka factory until it closed, after which she worked in the kiwi fruit packing house for 2 years before retiring at around 65. Retirement for Jenni was not a slowing down, it was an expansion. She became deeply involved in her community and contributed in countless ways. She was a foundation member of the Sir Optimist and worked tirelessly on the gardens at the ponds. She was active in the Machuaka Historical Society and had a keen interest in both family and district history. Jenni joined the Bridge Club, Probus, Senior Net and a photography group, continuing to develop her computer skills along the way. She volunteered at the Machuaka Museum, joined the 70-plus walking group and played croquet. The 70-plus walking group turned into the 80-plus walking group, meeting to walk by the estuary on a weekly basis and solving the problems of the world over coffee afterwards at the wharf. Her service was recognised with a community award for her contributions to Machuaka. Jenni also travelled widely in her retirement years. She visited the UK again, Russia, many European countries, China, Bali, the Chatham Islands, Norfolk Island, Fiji and Australia. Some of these trips were with family, others with friends like Jill Vickerman. Travel brought her joy and she embraced every opportunity to see more of the world. Her commitment to service extended beyond formal groups. Jenni delivered Meals on Wheels for many years and was an active member of her church, creating beautiful floral arrangements week after week and hosting the home group sometimes, which gave her the opportunity to get out the best family china. She loved her garden and the outdoors, and she nurtured both with care and pride. Jenni also loved the marine environment, and she was, as mentioned, she was often happiest with a fishing rod in her hand or in gathering shellfish. She loved tramping in particular, having walked the route burn many years ago before it became commonplace. She climbed Mount Arthur and Brown Acre many times and undertook numerous walks into the Takaka region and the Abel Tasman National Park. Jenni was a devoted aunt, great-aunt and great-great-aunt, following the lives of younger generations with genuine interest and affection. As a Depression-era child and perhaps reflecting her own professional life in accounting, Jenni was always quite frugal and was often heard gently admonishing the younger generations with words to the effect that Money doesn't grow on trees, or waste not, want not. Sometimes Jenni's photography travels centred around various sporting tournaments or endurance race events featuring the younger family members, which she loved attending. She also had many very happy stays with her niece Joanne at her and Rob's place at Kennedy Bay in the Coromandel, enjoying the Christmas and New Year festivities along with Judy and Russell. Jenni loved getting out on the boat, fishing there with Rob and the boys, often in big swells, and she even managed outings with Rob on the back of the jet ski while she was in her 80s. She was no fair weather sailor, Jenni, and would be the first one to help scale and gut the fish or to dig for and help open the cockles there, which sadly were very small compared to the ones we all got for years here as children. She would then happily roll up the sleeves and spend time with Joanne and Judy in the kitchen, helping feed all the family and friends who gravitated to Kennedy Bay. Jenni's cooking was a highlight for the younger family members when visiting her in Rawalka, including the whitebait fritters and cheese scones in particular, not to mention the homemade tomato sauce. And she always knew the location of the best fresh boysenberry ice cream stall. Jenni was a loyal and faithful friend, always willing to lend a hand, always dependable. Nothing ever seemed to faze her or to be too much trouble. After her father Cyril died in his late 50s, she was a constant support and companion to her mother Ivy, and in later years she enjoyed spending a lot of time with Pat's children, Annette and Peter, who spent many holidays in Muchwaker after Pat passed away, and who both subsequently moved to Muchwaker. Jenni's life was long, full and richly lived. She was energetic, widely read, capable and hard-working, curious, humble and kind. Her energy levels were quite remarkable, and we all recall her having to be restrained from clambering over the rocks near the Crystal Pool at the source of the Rawalka River during her 90th birthday celebrations. She was selfless and gave generously to her community, her friends and her family. She embraced change, welcomed adventure and remained engaged with the world around her right to the end. Annette, Peter and his wife Linda are to be thanked for the care, love and support they gave Jenni, both physically and emotionally, particularly during these last few years. The extended family is deeply grateful for everything they have done. Jenni leaves behind a legacy of service, friendship and quiet strength. She will be remembered with love, admiration and deep affection. And in closing, as Jenni herself would have said, cheerio, love to you all.
I'm Joanne, Mark's sister, between Mark and Shelley, daughter of Judy Hodge. Judy Hodge is Jenni's youngest sister. Judy married Russell Hodge, also from Muchwaker, in their early 20s and in this church. Dad turned 90 in January of this year, Mum turns 90 in November, and while both are still in good health, they're unable to be here today, but they are watching on the live feed from Auckland. So I will take the opportunity to acknowledge and thank Mum for writing up with Shelley the life story that Mark's just delivered, and for preparing the photo montage that we'll watch at the end of the service. So I'm now reading Mum's tribute to Jenni. It's her reflection on Jenni as her big sister, and so in Mum's words. Jenni May Askew, my big sister. Jen, or Bridget as I often called her, was 7 years older than me, so was always someone who did all the exciting things that I couldn't do. When I started school as a 5-year-old, she was biking off over the bridge in a smart new uniform to start high school. When I left Rawalka School and started high school, Jen was biking over the bridge in smart new office clothes to start her first job. Fortunately, during this period, I was able to play in the same netball and indoor basketball teams with her. Was I catching up? No. Jen was soon to be off on a working holiday around New Zealand. Then it was overseas and more adventures for her. After returning to New Zealand from overseas, I was older and she no longer seemed the older sister to me. I could relate to her as an adult. Jen had become my friend. Over the years, she travelled with Russell and me on overseas trips and was the best travel companion one could ask for. She was so easy to get on with and was always eager to explore and go with the flow. She came on our annual road trips exploring New Zealand from Cape Reinga to Bluff. This is when she joined me in my passion for photography. She bought a camera the same as mine and thick knee pads. We spent a lot of time at ground level photographing toadstools, shells, mountain flowers and small mosses. We would spend ages waiting to capture that special bird shot. Our trips then became one big photography outing. She saw the outdoors in a different light, spending hours searching for and often taking minute parts of the surrounds. After hours exploring the riverbanks, beaches or bush, depending on what part of New Zealand we were in, we would go back to our motel and pore over the images we had taken. Not a few images, but sometimes hundreds in a day. A lot of deleting went on, but also, look at this is a good one. After my children arrived, I delighted in sharing stories about them with Jen, their sporting activities, relationships, jobs, and then my grandchildren and their lives. And Jen was just as delighted to listen to them. In return, Jen would keep me up to date on what our sister Pat's children, Annette and Peter, were up to, and what each of Annette and Peter's children were doing. She would also tell me who was doing what in Machuaka. She was great at keeping in touch and passing on news. We communicated by phone, email, or more recently, WhatsApp messages for easy family photo sharing. 3 days before Jen passed, I emailed her a photo I had just taken. She texted back, "A great photo, Jen." That was the last sharing of photos we would have. I have such wonderful memories of our shared photography passion and all the exploration of the outdoors that went with it. I'll miss my weekly phone calls to her to hear about what she's been doing. She's no longer on the end of her camera or on her phone, but she's still in my memory, my big sister, my close friend.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert McLeod, and I am married to Joanne, Jenny's niece, who you've just heard from. It's my privilege to tell you a few stories about Jenny. I first met Jenny during Christmas 1983 when I joined the Hodge family for part of the holiday period in Motueka with Joanne. Jenny at that time was in her early 50s and seemed to move from one activity to another with the energy of a spring chicken. She lived with another energetic spring chicken, her mother Ivy. I discovered that that holiday was like going to a gymnasium with only brief, restful pauses between mountain climbing, swimming, running and bushwalking. At the time, Jenny was exactly twice my age, yet she behaved as though she were half it. It's no surprise that she went on to reach the remarkable age of 96, given Ivy's passing in her 95th year in 1999. Jenny never had children of her own, which I think perhaps explains why she was closer to her nieces and nephews than many aunts are. That closeness extended to their children as well. When they were growing up, Jenny never forgot a birthday, faithfully sending a cash gift in the mail each year. One of the highlights of my year was Jenny's annual visits to Kennedy Bay and the Coromandel, accompanied by Judy and Russell. Kennedy Bay is where my mother grew up and where my extended family, the McLeods, always gathered for the summer holidays. Judy, Russell and Jenny would stay with Joanne and me and our children for about 2 weeks from around Boxing Day. These visits continued for more than a decade and became a cherished tradition. As many of you know, Jenny was a very keen fisherwoman, and Kennedy Bay suited that perfectly. One memorable trip took place one New Year's Eve when Jenny, her niece Annette, Annette's daughter and Keisha and I set out for Cuvier Island, some 35 kilometres off the shore. The weather deteriorated during the day, and while we were at Cuvier, so we initially decided to spend the night anchored off the island, in the hope that in the early morning things would be a bit calmer. However, as the conditions worsened, we decided to weigh anchor and head home across the Colville Channel. As it turned out, the waves in the shallower water where we were around the island were much larger than those in the deep water of the open sea. Through it all, I was pretty nervous. I think so was Annette, but Jenny didn't bat an eyelid. Jenny was also excellent at untangling nets. A few times she patiently extracted small sharks and other nuisance bycatch so as to leave no holes in the net. She relished baiting the long line and was always the last to finish helping with cleaning up the boat, which was a task often left to me as captain, certainly after these long fishing days. After his wife died and before he passed away last month, Bill Birch, the ex-National Government Minister for Finance, often spent a few days with us at Kennedy Bay and over that Christmas period. These visits from Bill overlapped with Jenny, and Bill was obsessive with fishing, and for a time he and Jenny joined me on the boat. Being only 4 years younger than Jenny, they both belonged very much to the same generation. Bill took quite a shine to Jenny, as most people did, and with all the skills of the seasoned politician, he would often try and get her to persuade me to take them fishing every day. Jenny loved fishing, but unlike Bill, she never really once put pressure on or asked for favours. That was not in her nature. Some people might have described Jenny as passive, but that would be quite wrong. Jenny held strong views and she pursued her principles throughout life with a rather quiet determination. She could be surprisingly firm and, when necessary, wonderfully stubborn. Eventually, the 3-hour drive from Auckland to Kennedy Bay became too much for her, and Jenny's New Year's visits to the Coromandel came to an end. Everybody missed her coming, including Bill Birch, who would constantly ask after her. My own McLeod family, my 2 brothers and sister, certainly felt her absence. The interesting coincidence of fact is that my oldest brother Joe was a senior officer at Unilever in the 1960s and worked with Jenny in Hastings when he was employed there by Unilever. Unilever, you might know, owned the factory here in Motueka. Joe visited Motueka quite often, and he also met Jenny's father Cyril, who he came to know during those visits. It's a rather small world. This all predated me getting to know Joanne. Jenny spent time in Hastings as part of her work and came to know Joe there. Years later, through my connection with Joanne, they reconnected and spent many enjoyable hours reminiscing whenever they gathered at Kennedy Bay. These stories, I think, give you some measure of who Jenny was. She was an extraordinary person, not one in a million in my opinion, but one in several million. She possessed qualities that were rare even in her own generation and are perhaps rarer today. Vitality, generosity, humility, independence, determination and quiet strength. So on behalf of my 2 families and myself, thank you, Jenny, for the memories, the friendship, aroha, and the example that you have set for all of us. We remember you fondly.
Thank you, Mark and Joanne and Robert, for sharing those memories of such a wonderful woman. Before Peter and others speak, we have another musical tribute. How great thou art. Thank you. Sorry, Amazing Grace.
sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. The Lord has promised so much good to me. His word, my hope, secures He will my shield and my portion be, as long as my life and endures. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved me, a wretch like me. I was so lost, but now He found me. Was blind, I was so blind, but now I see. Yes, I do. Was blind, so blind, now I see. He saved my soul.
I'd like to invite Peter Snail now to speak, and if there are others who would like to speak also, but if you'd like to remain seated, we've got a microphone that I can give you that you can speak to while seated. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Andrew. I'm a newcomer to these parts. I've only lived here 53 years, so I came to Motueka in September 1973, and because we had a 3 weeks old baby and 2 young boys, we attended the Rawaka Church because worship time out there was the early service. The service here was not till 11 o'clock. One of the first people we met was Jenni, when she was working at Unilever's, the freeze-dried pig factory at the south end of the town that's been mentioned several times already this morning. Shortly after that, we met the Hebdens, who were also members of St Andrews, and Herb was the manager at Unilever's at that time, as was his successor. But Jenni was there for others long before that, as has already been mentioned by some of the previous speakers. Jenni is probably the only person who would recall the 3 Presbyterian churches in Motueka. Hope I'm right with that fact. 2 in Rawaka and this church. And she was a stalwart in all 3 and leaves a legacy of Christian service few others could better. She was present at the opening and the closing of the Second Rawaka Church. A few weeks ago, we had a luncheon for 8 of our congregation who were having their 80th birthdays this year. These are our younger members. And Jenny was present at that luncheon, and I thought at the time she was almost 20 years old when these celebrating their 80th birthdays were actually born. What a life, and what a huge amount of history of the town she must have accumulated over those years. There must be something about living in Lodders Lane. As a neighbour of Jenny's has just celebrated his 92nd birthday, and he's still working too. I thought Neil might have been here this morning, but he told me he had other things on when I saw him last Monday. In 1968, the Rawaka Church celebrated 100 years of worship in the area, with 3 special days of functions. The booklet produced for the centenary event covers much of the history and contains the Askew names in a number of places. The foundation for this church was laid on the 23rd of March 1917, and this was celebrated again with a booklet being researched by Jenny, then added to 3 times. Both of these booklets are good historical reads and a great preservation of our history. We acknowledge the work that Jenny did as church auditor for many years. I don't know the exact time, but it could have been as many as 50 years or more. She ran a home group on the third Thursday each month, and that has also just been mentioned. Jenny did the flowers at Rawaka forever. No idea how long, but it was many, many years. She was very proud of the clivias that flowered along the northern side of her house, and often talked to me about these, being a fellow horticulturalist. And she often used them in the vases in the churches. And I'm sure the family will remember those beautiful orange flowers along that garden. And she still drove her car to church. The egress to High Street out here is a shocker. Jenny parked on the east side of the street, and then after church she'd walk across the street, do a U-turn and head her car to Rawaka. We all worried about her doing this, and finally talked her into parking in the car park at the rear of the church. This eliminated one problem, but she still needed to risk turning left into High Street. This is now all behind you, Jenny, and we hope your final drive has brought you into a safer place and that the pain is over. You go with the blessings and love of your church family. For every day, that seat at the north side at the back will be empty, and we will miss you. Rest in peace, dear friend.
Thank you, Peter. Are there others who would like to speak about Jenny? And you'd like the microphone brought to you? You come up? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alison, and it is a great privilege to speak on behalf of the Rawaka Croquet Club and Motueka Bridge Club. Jenny was a life member of the Croquet Club, encouraged by her mother Ivy, who was a colourful and competitive player. Ivy was a very charismatic lady, never without a smile on her face, and a drive into Nelson to play in the local tournaments was quite a scary experience with her and her Morris Oxford, as it had a ball on the steering wheel in those days, and Jenny would be driving, and there was no motorway then, with one hand, illustrating her story with the other, and turning around watching us in the back seat. We all lived to tell the tale. Jenni no doubt inherited her mother's positive and friendly attitude, and it was great that she was able to attend our 100-year celebrations last year, and also to be able to cut the cake. Now on to bridge. In 1972, after an exciting trip overseas, Jenni was employed by Percy Craig, a local accountant who, along with his wife Mari, were avid bridge players. Mari presented Jenni with the mantle of club treasurer, and that was a position she held for more than 30 years. Among her many interests, involvements and activities, Jenni was a huge stalwart of the Motueka Bridge Club. Her treasurer's position was undertaken with diligence, quiet confidence and amazing accuracy. Jenni's thorough understanding of finances and her natural competence simplified and made for a very smooth running of a small town and mainly social bridge club. She was made a life member in 2004, a well-deserved accolade in recognition of her sterling and unstinting understanding and input to the club. Jenni, you were an inspiration to us all. You were trustworthy, positive, friendly, unassuming, and always with the local community at heart. Now there's a well-known proverb in the New Testament, Luke 12, verse 48, and it relates well to Jenni. It says, "To whom much is given, much is required." You well and truly did your bit, and if this unsettled world was full of Jenni Askews, it would be a much better place. A life well lived, Jenni, and may you continue to rest in peace. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Elizabeth Bartlett, and it's exactly 50 years ago that Jenni and I met, but not 50 years ago that I had heard about Jenni. My husband, his father and his uncle were all involved and worked at the DHI before Unilever. So I knew a little bit about Jenni before the 50 years ago that the Motueka Sir Optimus International Service Club for Women was started. And that's where I came along, because like Peter, I was a latecomer to this town. I had only come in 1967. Young and enthusiastic members of the Sir Optimus Club, she joined in everything we did. We started out helping other small organisations in this town to get going. Places like the Toy Library in that terrible cold building behind Buttons, and buying a horse for the RDA. And lo and behold, they were a bit short on members to start with, so who did the finances for the first few years? As a Sir Optimus member, helping out someone else. We raised funds by making Christmas puddings, and probably there's a few of you here that bought them and consumed them. We also began the first garden trail here that has continued on through other service clubs, but it helped us raise the funds to help the others in the community. But doing these things as a service club was only half of what I think a service club's all about, and probably all the members the same. The other half was friendship. It was an equally important thing for me as a young tobacco farmer's wife to meet other young women in the town. There were those out of the retail, the nurses, the school teachers, the banking, the orchardists. It was a great place to meet, a great place to exchange ideas. And perhaps I digress a little, but how times have changed, because when we worked, played and laughed together, we exchanged hints, we exchanged recipes, and we generally gossiped. Today, what do? If you want to know something, you press the button and go to Google. I know which option I would prefer. Well, Jenni, I will never ever forget you, because when I open my recipe book, you will always be there. Large cheesecake, Jenni Askew. Presentation was exquisite and taste was amazing. We had wonderful meals, wonderful food when we did catering, and she was one of many who were great at that skill. Getting past the age of voluntary work, as a number here will realise, we continue to meet every second Saturday of the month for lunch and to continue what women do. There would be something very wrong if Jenni didn't turn up to our monthly get-togethers. There had to be something wrong. Right to the end, she was still driving, picking up Frida, doing the weekly shop, and coming to lunch. We've had one meeting since. We missed you, Jenni. We missed your love, your friendship, and your helping hand, which we, as a community, thrived on. You were quiet and humble, but with that assertive streak when you thought we needed it. She was always able to be relied upon. You never had to check what Jenni was going to do twice. It was done with ease, grace and perfection. We will always remember your bucketfuls of kindness. How time flies. It's 50 years short to me, and we have lost a gem. Thank you, Jenni Askew.
I'd just like to quickly acknowledge Jenni as a Sunday school teacher. Her mum, Mrs Askew, was, as far as I remember, bridesmaid for my grandma, and she played hockey with my grandma, so we had quite a long history of family connections. And Jenni, as we knew her, everyone else was Mrs, but Jenni, I think, was Jenni, and she, when we were first at churches, well, my earliest memories were really Jenni as our Sunday school teacher, and she faithfully used to always bring us the church newsletter in these later years. When we'd moved on to other churches, she kept us in contact by bringing us the newsletter. So yeah, she was very highly thought of by our family. Went to school with, she's the same age as my father, so yeah, we had quite a connection with them. And Ivy used to come and visit our grandma, so sad to see her gone. I'm not actually as old as I look, because my primary school teacher, when we first started premise at Rewalker School, was actually still alive too, so Jenni's helped us feel young by still being here. We're Hicknots, in case for those that don't know, so we're Rewalker. That's so it was Nita Hicknot, Rich's wife, who was Bert's sister-in-law. He was known for the buses in town.
Morning all. For those who don't know me, my name is Jim Fry. And I don't want to prolong this particular episode, but I thought that I should bring Jenni in just a little bit at the start of my life and at this stage of my life. Everybody knew where everybody lived in Rewalker when I first started. And even when we got to 5 years old and I went to Rewalker School, everyone still knew where everyone lived. We all knew that there was a family of Askews living at 18 Lodder Lane, and we met them on various occasions through education and other bits and pieces. And the other interesting thing that I would like to bring forward when I'm looking at a little bit of history is that the residents immediately across the road from Rogers Garage, the Challenge Garage in Rewalker, that building was originally built as a Presbyterian church. And there was the manse attached to it as well. And that's where I first got a little bit more familiar with Jenni Askew, because I was registered there, as was Mr. Hickmott, who spoke earlier, as a Sunday school pupil, and Jenni was our Sunday school teacher. We referred to her mostly as Miss Askew, but quite often when we were hurrying to answer a question, it would be Jenni. Wasn't frowned upon, but it was accepted. At the end of our Sunday school lessons, I must admit that a few of us strayed a little. I don't know whether Jenni was very happy about it, but she put up with the fact that boys will be boys, and I guess that's the way it goes with everything. But as soon as we finished our Sunday school lessons, it was out of the church, across the fence, into Tom Bradley's orchard, and we'd pinch the apple. Not a good look for somebody that had just attended Sunday school, I must admit. But at that age, Jenni was 7 years older than me, so at the age I was at that stage, I suppose it was 8 or 9, it was a daring thing to do, to go and pinch Tom Bradley's apples. We enjoyed Tom Bradley's company on the tennis court later on, and he always forgave us for pinching the apples. However, from there on, with life as it is, Jenni certainly adopted a lot of areas to work in. and I stayed in one place in Motueka, and although we saw each other on a regular basis, we weren't great friends until Judy, who was my age in the family, we went to school, primary school together and secondary school together, and she was the one that I was more interested in of the three girls, I must admit. However, she also threw me in at the deep end many, many years later when she was down here on holiday. This is Judy I'm talking about, and she stopped me in the street and she said, I wanted to talk to you. And I said, oh, well, that's good. She said, would you like another car to restore? And I said, Judy, I've restored cars right up to my eyebrows right now, and I don't want to restore another car. Why? What's the problem? And she said, well, the problem is that Jenny wants to get rid of Mum's 1955 Morris Oxford from the shed because Annette wants to use it to store canoes in. And I said to Jenny, well, look, to Judy, look, I'm not interested. I've spent more money on restoring cars than I really should have, and I've got them stored at home. There's no other room that I've got, and so I'm not really interested. However, goodness only knows what happened between then and when I met Jenny at church one day, about 2 or 3 months later, and she said to me, oh, by the way, Judy said that you would be interested in restoring the Morris Oxford. And I thought to myself, where the hell did that come from? I thought I made it quite clear that I didn't want to do any more about it. And so, shortly after that, I called on Jenny and said, look, what was the story with the Morris Oxford anyway? Judy said you were going to dump it. And she said, well, yes, I am. And I said, well, that would be a shame, wouldn't it? And she said, well, yes, it would, but I've got to get rid of it. I need the space, and it needs the space. So I said, well, look, I'm not really interested in restoring it, but what I will do, I'll get hold of John Miller, and we will come down, and we will drag it out of the garage, and I'll store it in the front, one of the Francois sheds, because I'd married Nola Francois at that stage, and I'll look after it for you. She said, you're not just going to look after it. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm going to give it to you. I don't want the damn thing. And that's all there is to it. So she said, if you're going to take it out of the shed and you're going to store it, you've got it. I've got all the bits and pieces, and I'll give those to you as well, and you own a 1955 Morris Oxford. And what could I say? I said, well, thank you, Jenny, that's really generous of you, but however, it sat in the shed for about 2 or 3 years. And I looked at Jenny one day at church, and I thought, oh my golly, she's 94, or 93, I suppose it was. If I don't do something about that car that she's given me, I will feel terrible and she will never see it restored. So I made a decision right there and then that I would restore it. And I did. And it was really beautiful. And one of the things that really made me get stuck into it was when I looked into the car after it's sitting in the shed for about a couple of years, and I thought, I wonder what's under that plastic on top of those seats. So I got a clipper out and I clipped all the little clips off, and I gradually peeled the plastic back, and the seats were absolutely pristine. And that's what happened in those days. People would buy new cars that really they wanted to keep new, and they would cover the seats with plastic, or sacks or whatever was handy, and they would put more carpet on the floor over top of what already was there, and that would keep it nice and pristine for selling later on. So I lifted up this plastic, and here were these beautiful seats. And I had to persuade myself that, okay, that had just saved me, if I was going to restore the car, it had just saved me $4,000 or more on seat upholstery. So I went ahead and restored the car. I must admit that I took Jenny, several times in it after it was restored. We went and had coffees together and went up the river and had a bit of a look around, and she enjoyed driving in the car. I appreciated the fact that it was her mother's car, Ivy's, and not hers, but however, she was the one that gave it to me. But unfortunately, I had an accident with it, and I buckled the front. I didn't do my second wife, Nola's, any good by breaking one of her legs, but that's another story. So I finally found out that the police had it, and they were looking into the fact that we had an accident, and they were going to blame me for all sorts of things. However, we did get together with them, and it didn't turn out quite that bad after all. I went through a series of requirements, and I managed to come out the other end satisfactorily, and that was great. The worst part of it was that I couldn't get the car back, and I wanted the car back. So I got hold of the insurance company and I said, "What are you going to do with the Morris Oxford?" And they said, we'll probably eventually auction it. And I said, like hell you will, if you excuse my expression. If anyone's going to auction that car, it's going to be me. But I said, I want that car. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And they said, well, you can't drive it. It's been written off. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that. But I said, I've been paying the premiums. You've been accepting the risk. I don't see where the problem is. Surely it's my car. However, in the end, they relented, charged me $4,500 for it, and I got the car back, which was fine. I put it in the shed and thought, I'll look at it from time to time and see whether I'm going to go any further with it. And that's what I did. And right at the moment, it's in the process of being restored again. It's going to be a shame that once it is restored and back to its usual life, Jenny won't get a ride in it. But I did tell her that once I got the car restored and on the road, it would have the Askew name, because I would call it Ivy Askew. And that's what I've done. I will certainly, the car is still being restored. It'll probably take another 6 months or more to be there, but that's what I will have. It will have a number plate which will say Ivy Askew. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jim. Hello to everyone. My name is Annette Levilland. I'm another one of Jenny's nieces. Before I start my talk, I just want to add to what Rob said. On that trip back from the island, Auntie Jenny's feet were leaving the ground by 10 to 15 centimetres every wave that we went over. And also, I also want to share just briefly a little story. Tracy and I took Auntie Jenny fishing at about the age of 89 in Golden Bay. It's just a small boat, and to go fishing you had to clamber down off the wharf. We decided that that was a little bit risky for Auntie Jenny, so we managed to manhandle her into the boat while it was on the ground, and we launched her in the boat down into the water. She took one of Joanne's kids' little rods with her on the fishing trip, and she caught 4 or 5 reasonable size snapper. Towards the end of the day, suddenly though, her rod went whew, and for the next 20 minutes she fought that fish, and bearing in mind this is a slightly upgraded kid's rod, and ran out of energy towards the end and handed it to me. I don't think anybody else could have landed it on that rod. The fish fortunately was quite small at that tide at that stage, and we wound it in, and it was a 69 centimetre kingfish. So that was Auntie Jenny's last fishing trip as I'm aware of. So the topic of my talk is Jenni Askew, how to live a good life. A life of, as summarising what people have said, connection, service, food and exercise discipline, calm determination and bravery, which is really the topic of my talk. As many of you will know, Jenni was deeply devoted to both her immediate and extended family, taking great pride in supporting not only the next generation, but the next, and recently the next after that. From a very young age, my brother and I spent most of our Christmas holidays with Jenni and my nana. As a teenager, when I was working picking boysenberries, because you had to do something useful with your time, Jenni would drive me to and from work each day. Then most afternoons she would arrive near the end of the day and help me fill one more bucket before finishing work. She would tell me never to be ashamed of dirt attained through hard work. Jenni also shared her love of the outdoors with me. She would take me hiking, and I thought the walk to Kikio Bay was a life-threatening tramp at the time, of a whole 40 minutes for those of you who haven't done it. But our walks would often include infrequent stops so she could photograph alpine daisies, fungi, birds and other treasures of nature that caught her eye. After leaving school, my friend Shona and I lived with Auntie Jenny and Nana for 6 months while we worked on Tony Fry's tobacco farm, a job that she obtained for us. And the tobacco farm at that point surrounded her house. Jenni welcomed us into her home, gave Shona dating advice, and made the transition into adulthood much easier. She was always there when support was needed, and she offered it without judgment. She lent me my money to purchase my first car, something that made a real difference to me at the time. But she expected me to pay back something on it every month. 9 years ago, after Jenni suffered a couple of strokes, I decided to move to Motueka as soon as I could find a job. The next week, I found a job to apply for. So I did that, took on the job and moved in with her, intending to stay only a few months while I looked for a house to buy. Jenni generously agreed, though she was concerned about having to cook for me, and even more so about having to eat my cooking. Dinner had to appear exactly at 6 p.m. with the news, and Friday was always fish, and Saturday and Sunday were always small meat-free meals. As it turned out, finding the right section and building a home took me much longer than expected, and 3 years later I finally moved out. During that time I was grateful for her companionship, her support and her willingness to share her home with me. My brother also stayed with her for short stints while he was also building his house. What stands out most to me is Jenni's bravery over the last 9 years, and the way she continued to live a full and independent life well into her 96th year despite significant challenges. And there has been quite a bit of debate in the family about whether these significant challenges should be acknowledged, and I have edited it somewhat, Jolene. But Because this has been recorded, and because this is going to go handed down to generation to generation, I think we really need to understand what she went through. So most of her week was filled with groups that she belonged to, all mapped out on her busy calendar. Her kitchen table was often filled with financial books from different organisations. You could tell this was underway when the old-fashioned calculator with a roll of paper was spooling out numbers, and there was mumbles of, "I can't get this to add up." And I'm sure some of you in the audience were the cause of them not adding up. "They've made a mistake, and I can't find it." But then when the papers disappeared, a box of chocolates would miraculously appear on the table, which seemed to be the return for doing all this work. Jenny had amazing discipline in her eating. She allowed herself just one biscuit with her tea, 2 pieces of chocolate at night, and only small portions in her regular jaunts to cafes. Often she'd come home telling me all sorts of stories about how much other people ate. Her exercise program included carrying buckets of water from the washing machine to water the garden, gardening, chopping her own wood, kindling and carrying bundles of firewood into the house each day, and of course walking. She did wear the St John's Alert necklace around her in the house, which was used to call the ambulance on a number of occasions in response to falls in the garden or in the house, which always resulted in magnificent splits in the skin and bleeding. She did, at 93, after the final ambulance call, agree to stop climbing up ladders. After her strokes, the next challenges were losses of hearing, which we were told regularly was because me and my brother talked quietly and mumbled. And then she was diagnosed with wet macular degeneration in her eyes, which required monthly and latterly 2 monthly eye injections and trips into Nelson with the shuttle bus, which she highly valued because it gave her independence. But her first initial eye injection resulted in a massive bleed that permanently blinded her in that eye. Next month, she got in the shuttle and went off and got the other eye injected. Her reasoning was, if I do nothing, I'm going to go blind anyway, so I'm going to take the chance. Not many of us could be this brave. This decision kept her independent in driving until 2 weeks before she died. The next challenge came after a trip to the emergency doctor in Motueka and then the Nelson Hospital Department, where after a scan she was told that she had bowel cancer and would need to decide in the next 20 minutes what to do. She chose the risky operation that was deemed extremely risky for her age and then recovered. She was in a ward of much younger people. They all had been told that getting up and walking was important for recovery. Every afternoon when I arrived at the hospital, she would have a list of tasks for me because she didn't want to bother the already busy staff. And then we exercised. She soon outpaced all the much younger patients on the ward, recovering from the same procedure. And when she came home, she challenged herself to walk each day further down Lotta Lane so she could get back to her regular walking group. Jenny was subsequently diagnosed with 2 other cancers, but simply carried on and adapted. And then just 3 weeks before she died, she received a terminal lung cancer diagnosis. For those of you that were asking in the room what actually happened to Jenny. Through all of this, she continued to care for herself, live alone, and make most of her own meals, and drive her car only during the day to Motueka. After her terminal diagnosis, Jenny decided she didn't want to go to hospital. Instead, she wanted to die at home. And in true Jenny's style, she was faced the end with calm bravery, no complaints, minimal fuss, in clean clothes, sitting in her chair in the sun, in her own kitchen, just as she wanted. And now, on behalf of Jenni, I want to thank a number of people. Firstly, Kate, for the beautiful artwork on the memorial pamphlet that you've all received. Then to my brother and his wife Linda for maintaining Jenni's garden, helping with the upkeep of the house, and making regular visits that enable Jenni to remain at home. I want to thank Jenni's neighbours who had over the last 10 years or so, offered up 3 different sons to mow her lawns, and were also the first responders to probably, I think, 4 St John's alerts. I want to thank Kelly, who couldn't come today, but is listening because she's picked up the flu that's going around, who initially did a few hours gardening, but then later became home help and a good friend of Jenni's as they worked together in the garden and the house, because Jenni could never just watch. This was a key component of Jenni's feeling of independence, and they had many laughs and chats while working together. One memorable discovery was finding more than 20 packs of toilet paper stored in the hot water cupboard from Nana's era. I want to thank the staff who run the Nelson Hospital Shuttle and the district nurses and hospice staff whose advice, guidance and resources made it possible for Jenni to die at home as she wished. I want to thank the Hodge family for all the adventures they took Jenni on around the world, the visits to Batches over Christmas and the fishing trips, and their help in putting together this memorial service. I would like to thank Reverend Calendar and members of the St Andrew's United Parish, who are a big part of Jenni's life and have contributed so much. Thanks to the people that sent us cards and those that have travelled far to attend this event, and those that have shared their stories today, and to those online listening to this event. I want to thank the people who donated to the church in lieu of flowers. And finally, I want to thank all Jenni's friends, family, who are an essential part of her remarkable 96 years. And what an amazing and inspiring life it has been. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, and others who have shared. What an extraordinary life. We now have a photographic tribute to share.
Ooh.
Well, I really am a newcomer to the area. And I first got to know Jenni just 2.5 years ago. I visited with her twice at her home at Lotta Lane, and on both occasions she showed me historical records concerning the Presbyterian Church in the area. In Riwaka, going back to the very earliest days. And on my second visit, she entrusted these records to me that I will in turn entrust to the church here for safekeeping. Jenni, like so many of her generation, was deeply faithful and deeply committed to her community, serving selflessly in ways that didn't draw attention to herself, but left a profoundly valuable legacy to all those who followed. Her life can be very well described in the words of St. Paul as a person of faith, hope, and love. Let us now commend our sister Jenni to the loving faithfulness of God, our Maker and Redeemer. God of amazing grace, through your gift of love in creation, you have given us our time of life upon the earth. And through your gift of love in Jesus Christ, you offer us eternal life with you. We entrust Jenni to your safekeeping in the faith of Jesus Christ and commend to her to your perfect care. Grant her eternal rest and let your perpetual light shine upon her. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever has faith in me shall live, even though she dies. And no one who lives and has faith in me shall ever die. Let us reflect on these things as we're led in one final musical tribute. We will meet again.
But I know we'll meet
invite you to share with them over refreshments in the hall. Come through this door, through the lounge, and then past the toilets into the hall, and you're very welcome to place a flower on the table as you pass. Thank you so much.